according to Kemetic history, each king had 5 names. So why would they only write one name on the cartouche? Why wouldn't they write all 5 names?
That names are pretty much one of the hardest things to translate because there are a lot of abbreviations and there are a lot of assumptions by the people themselves that already know the language. So names are pretty much like full sentences crunched into a couple of symbols and signs. So I just want to put that out there so that people won't get frustrated when they try to do this if they're first learning. So over time, you'll learn what these abbreviations are.
What's up? It's 42 tribes. Hey, just doing a video that explores a pathology I've noticed. A disrespect for competence, especially melanated competence. There was no reason that Young Pharaoh should have taken this debate, ran from it, and used sources that were inferior to the people who volunteered to teach him. I'll give you another example.
Now, if you look up the etymology of the word cartouche, it comes back to an Italian word, which means grocery bags. Egyptians didn't have grocery bags, stupid bitch. So why would they write their name on a grocery bag? But you niggas don't do no research. You just run your fucking mouth and slander all day. But don't worry, because I'm here to whoopsie your ass right up out of here. Don't worry. Pseudo. Let's go to pseudo, bitch.
Well, this is on the roof. Now, this is called a cartouche. You hear Egyptologists always talk about cartouche, French word, means bag of holding or grocery bag. Well, actually, it's a knot of papyrus. And Egyptologists will tell you that a king's name was inscribed. And that's another one that needs to be flushed down the toilet. Because these people would never have put their common names up on the walls for anybody.
Now, this is in the program, Hey Room. If you go in there, that's the book of the day. If you go in there, that's the book of the day. But what I'm saying is the fact that we can go in this metal now.
You know, very important for the audience to learn the cartouche and how to properly read the cartouche, because that's one of the most easiest things and most readily available things that we can.
The first thing is not called the cartouche. It's not. That's the French. So it's called a chino.
All right, well, y'all can do the honors on that. I'm going to mute my mic, Kalama, Brother Reggie, and I'll just let my cursor follow your words.
The cartouche it comes from a French word for, I guess, bullet. And so the French called the name basically a cartouche. And it is basically what we know as a chino. It represents usually a name.
Yeah, let me add to that, just real quick. Cartouche means cartridge, not bullet. But
I don't know if it's like cartridge or not, but I don't think it's like I didn't see a reference for grocery bag. I mean, this dude's talking cocky as I don't know what. Like, you have a grocery bag, like just cocky as hell. And he could have learned this from the Amun-Ra squad a long time ago. You know what I mean? Like, this video where the Amun-Ra squad is going over this and they just happen to bring it up. And everybody knows it. And they don't just know that, but they know the real word. And I'll show that later. And they go into that detail. And I don't even know if Melner knows the French word for it, because I don't see the example that it's a grocery bag. So, and hey, let me back up, because you probably don't know who these people are. This might seem kind of funny. The dude with the foul mouth, he teaches a bunch of, they call it pseudoscience. I think that word's a little catchy. I'm not sure if it fits. Well, you can see and be the judge. And he was debating a team of scholars. And the guy is somewhat militant, so you'll see that he damn near plagiarizes. This dude, Young Pharaoh, damn near plagiarizes a white man's work, who's inferior to the black scholars. And I'll explain why, because I studied under both of them. Like, I studied both Melner's School of Chematology. I think it's a decent school. It's I would recommend it, but I gotta say that, and you'll see, I'll demonstrate in this video why the Amun Ra Squad is beyond them. I mean, Milner's not a bad source. He has some horrible white sources that YK The Truth does a video about that I'll show a clip of. But this guy, Stephen Melner, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Young Pharaoh pretty much rips him down near word for word. And I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the Amun Ra Squad and clips from when they're reading Egyptian writing. And that's what the debate was about. And that's what's crazy. Like, if you're not familiar with this, they were debating over whether or not Egyptian writing was deciphered, which is just an insane debate topic. Take that up with Sonnetter. It should have never been a debate. It's anti-intellectual. It's just as dumb as, is Kemet homosexual? Like, you know, that's, I like Sonnetter, but the Springer debate topics really did bite them in this case, because they ended up running from the debate. Because the Amun Ra Squad, their team of scholars, I would say they're pretty much top-notch when it comes to breaking down African history, linguistics, all of that. They're pretty elite. Oh yeah, and if anybody doubts that I studied this dude, I've read one of his books. I reference it in one of the first videos I did, Two Faces of Ancient Egypt. You can just check this out right here, see what he says about 42 tribes.
So the 42 tribes we're talking about.
See, with Young Pharaoh, I noticed that there was something up with him a while ago, and I couldn't really figure it out. I don't know why he has such an ignorant following base, fan base. I don't know, but to me, I thought the dude was a little suspect.
It is documented that there is a 65 million year old pyramid in what? I'll pull it up. What? I'll pull it up. Start looking crazy.
That there is a 65 million year old pyramid.
Like, he's so bad, he shook his head.
In what?
I gotta replay that. How many times did he shake his head?
It is documented that there is a 65 million year old pyramid in what? I'll pull it up. What? I'll pull it up. Start looking crazy.
That there is a 65 million year old pyramid in.
I don't know. I can't.
I'll pull it up. What? I'll pull it up.
What is? I mean, you gotta. It's that old, and it looks like that, and that's what I mean. This guy has a problem when it comes to discernment. Here's another example with a giant spider crawling. Watch this. This is crazy. Like, this is him doing a lecture in front of. I heard YK The Truth says it's thousands of people. Dude, it's people in there like they think that's real. Why do you think that's real? Ain't you seen movies before? These motherfuckers ain't never seen no movies. That ain't real. That's fake. I can tell it's fake by looking at it. Because if that was real, then, man, it'd be on the news.
So first he gave 3,000 plus people.
Yeah, let me play this clip from YK The Truth, where he really goes into Pharaoh's other sources.
Now let's look up Michael Tillinger and see who he's with, and then we can come to the conclusion that it's some pseudo bullshit. If they are all in the same line, you got Zechariah Sitchin, Anunnakis. You got Credo Mutwa, reptilians. You got Graham Hancock, the Orion and the pyramids theory. You got Klaus Donner, the same guy with the Orion and the stars aligning with the pyramids that I'm going to get into. You got Michael Cremo, the dude who Pharaoh brought up in the video, who created.
So with that being said, have you ever read this book? That book is pseudo. It's pseudo. That's your opinion. Have you ever read the book? Yes, I've read it. It's pseudo.
That's from a pre-debate with the Amun Ra Squad. Dr. Mahat.
He believes giants built the pyramids. He believes in giants. You got
YK The Truth is funny. He believes in giants.
Crackers
an exception to Guido Mutua with his
White boys had heard that African folklore.
which
They was,
David Icke borrowed. Okay, I'm breaking
Check
down.
this out.
Look, Pharaoh, you got to show their aliens. Right or wrong, Pharaoh?
more from the pre-debate.
Where is the source on your claim about 50% of things
Ain't
not
this
being
some
there?
stupid
We
shit?
got those answers. So
I mean,
everybody
seriously, ain't
kinda
this some
thinks
stupid
a
ass
little
shit?
bit that he can a little bit get with this, he can't. So Pharaoh, right now, show us in those glyphs, right, that you claim have not been deciphered where the aliens are, and this will end the whole conversation. Hold on. Show it right now. And when you do it, right, I won't teach no more. Nope, I will show you. Hey, he got a chance to knock me out.
Look at you. I'm talking and look at you.
Oh, hey, he got a chance right now to shut me down forever. Right now, go ahead, Pharaoh. I promise you, I will never teach again. Go.
We ain't making no mistakes. I'ma show you, I'ma show you what you asked for, and I'ma show you an actual extraterrestrial mummy that was genetically tested to have foreign DNA, and it was mummified. Now I'm finna show you. So goodbye to the cognitive community. This is a medallion found in the tomb of a pharaoh with a giant ass UFO on it. Do you see that UFO? Do everybody see that? Oh, you quiet. Goodbye. Okay, now point number 2.
Man, I can't even make this up. I cannot make this up. How do you look? I've looked at a lot of ancient Egyptian art. I was studying ancient Egypt for a pen and paper game, and that transitioned to a movie script. And you gotta expect it to look more ethnic than that. You know, like these are the faces of ancient Egypt. I just did a Google search and just chopped off what I had, and it's all those hieroglyphs for face, one statue, you know. But like I said, there's the guy can run the game, he can teach. It's just what he's teaching, because he's a terrible student. He doesn't learn. He can't tell reality from fiction at all. Like, it's just terrible. Like but hey, it works for him because there's enough suckers out there. But I'm just getting started. Did you see his face?
I showed you the proof. You can laugh at it if you want, but this is factual artifacts that we found. Now then I'll show you the book I have called Hidden Outside.
This is insane.
It is over 1,000 pages, and it's an unpublished book full of shit the government found.
This is insane. This is real. Like, this was actually going to be a real debate. People were going to show up for this before they ran. You know, he can't be that dumb because he got out of the debate. They crack it up.
Accept defeat, because you shouldn't have said you let your ego put you out there, and now you looking crazy. You shouldn't have did that. You think everything fun? You think I just say shit there myself talk? No. This is an actual extraterrestrial mummy that was recovered in Kemet. Can you see that? Can you see that?
Yo, y'all gotta stop laughing, man. Come on, man.
See, this is a mistake that Sonetter made by coddling this dude. And the thing I've noticed is he has this whole, and I noticed it, but somebody said it best. There's this guy's Oh God, who has a channel called In the Black, and one of the people like who it was in his chat said that there's a baby boy syndrome. And I see this a lot with women and older men, is they kind of look at young Pharaoh as the baby boy. And they seem to assume that when people are correcting what he's teaching, because some people go along with this, that they're just bashing the dude, you know, like they internalize stuff that isn't there. Maybe they internalize it or they project it. I don't know. Another thing I've noticed is that a lot of his fans, and this dude's fans, you see the dumbest stuff in the comments. This one, you see a lot of fans that they almost treat Young Pharaoh like he's a set, like, you know, and then if you start saying anything, they'll start set tripping on you. Like it's almost just a gangster mentality. And you can see, let me pull this up and actually read what this guy said. And I basically, one thing I do with Young Pharaoh fans is I cut to the chase. I'm like, how do you fact check them? Because I can Google image, it's pretty. YK The Truth did a 2-hour video. If you were fact checking fact checking Young Pharaoh, then you'd go watch YK The Truth. And he's very open with how he goes through Young Pharaoh sources and the stuff that this dude teaches. It's easy to open it up and really go to town. But this is what one of the fans replied to me, and I was just basically asking him how he fact checks them. And it's not just the whole set tripping aspect. I also see that there's a little bit of homosexuality in it, for lack of a better term. And let me just say, I'm not one of them dudes in the conscious community that's hella homophobic or anything like that. But this guy says something about another man that I could never say, and you'll see why. He said 42 tribes, motherfucker. This is like the only thing he doesn't put in caps. So it's like, it's a silent motherfucker. I just told you that I'm my own man. I lead my own family. I love Pharaoh, and I'm proud of him because he has a brilliant mind of a genius. We aren't there yet. He can love Pharaoh. Okay, I think black men should love each other more, but we're getting there. He is our finest black youth, more baby boy shit, and the dude isn't even that young, who is our highly articulate. I'm not here as a grown man to do research on everything he says because I'm busy teaching my own family and my people. My job is not to critique Pharaoh. I come to encourage him, and he is a young man who can be corrected. More baby boy shit. Get off my Pharaoh dick. I don't even feel good saying this. I cannot put my before another man's dick. He says, get off. Look, I got the screenshot. Get off my Pharaoh dick. And after that, he emphasizes it. Yo, real talk. You go handle your business. Oh, Lord. And I need to fast forward through this. Y'all already know he's bringing this dude, but let me just show like how he plagiarized the dude. And again, props to Jehudi Mahad. He went through this, and he was sharp.
All right, my next reference. Because not only am I going to come with a black reference, I'm going to come with a European reference.
Sound not the sign.
A European reference.
Sound not the sign.
I'm going to come with a European reference. All right? I'm going to come with, it's probably on the video. But you know what was there that could have done it? That dried up? A river called the Ernil River that dried up 11,000 years ago.
Again, in my book is more detail. The ancient civilization I'm talking about had an ancient river, which we call the Ernil, which was named by a German.
But this is why everything in Egypt has a yellowish binge or shade to it. And I know some of y'all want to be cute and say it's not really yellow, it's red. We ain't doing that right now.
But I want you to look at this color. Keep the color.
This ain't no coincidence. He watched this shit. And you know what he didn't seem to notice? Wait, I'll show you. Now remember, he's arguing that the meta-netter has not been deciphered.
Even the word Kim in Arabic, they call it al-him.
Egyptians, one of their terms.
How are they knowing this if it's not deciphered?
What I'm saying is the fact that we can go in this meta-net.
We can go in this meta-net.
So netter is actually where the Greek word nature comes from.
Well,
Netter, nature. So the house of nature, the house of energy.
The Khan called it in Toro. Bullshit.
Fire in the middle. Much closer to the true understanding. Had nothing to do with it.
Man.
So of course at this point we always stop and say,
y'all about to get educated because I'm going to play some more on the non-squad stuff. I got to go through this because I don't want people to say I'm slandering the dude. That's an overused word. Let me bring it to you. Why don't you say?
But what I'm saying is the fact that we can go in this metal net.
See, now, Seti is reading, or he's trying to read. He's saying that you can just look this up. So it's deciphered. Everybody's deciphering it. Now watch, even Stephen Moeller's, the dude that Pharaoh plagiar source, he reading it too. That's the netter sign. I think that's the Ba sign right there. So he's reading it. Matter of fact, if you look at his website, I think I might have I'll show it in a moment, but I have a clip of his website. Per netter, the house of the netter, house of energy.
And here it is. This
Per
is what I
ba.
have here on a piece, nice, wonderful piece of granite.
Per
netter.
netter.
That's the sign for netter, like a flag or a pennant. I would go
Those
to
are the
section
fancy
where eventually
pyramids, not the tombs. That's one thing where I think he's right that the Amun-Ra Squad doesn't talk about is there are two types of pyramids. Maybe they could go into that, you know, because they debunk a lot of
This might
this
just be
school.
Ankh-Hor Neter
Everybody's
Teperu.
reading it. See, that's the Amun-Ra Squad. I'm going to go back to them in a minute. Now, this is Asari Imhotep showing the different words for God, for which are similar to Netter in different African languages. And he's saying God, but really that's kind of a backwards translation or whatever. More like aspect, more of an animist understanding of a deity. Yeah, and they're reading the stuff, dude. They're reading it, and on their website, let me show you exactly what their website says. 'Cause their website is pretty plain. Like right here, dude. Let me pull this up. Okay, I'm gonna read this. It says, this is from the chematology website. This is the guy's source. This is the Ayani school, that all the stuff that Pharaoh was talking about. And the website disagrees with his premise that it hasn't been deciphered. And I was saying that from the moment they release their living room lecture. The quote from their website, we speak about the authenticity of the glyphs and how we deciphered them using the well-known hieroglyphic texts and other resources. That's what his main source says. So, I mean, this to me is just dishonesty. You know, this is you don't have someone that you quote this often out of context from what they actually teach. That's just lying to people. You know, I'm just going to put it bluntly. Put it Elliot bluntly. That's foul. You know, let me put my middle finger up to that. Okay? And I'm going to keep this going a little bit long. Actually, I'm probably about halfway through. Just give me another example. It's going to be more Amun-Ra Squad towards the end.
But what I'm saying is the fact that we can go in this metal net.
An example. This is the beetle that they call Kepra in Egyptology or in Egyptian Kemetic science, whatever you want to call it at this point. Now, the beetle, we know from studying, you motherfuckers watch Animal Planet, every morning during sunrise, the beetle goes and takes all of the dung, which is just feces from another animal, and it rolls it up into a giant ball, and it drills a hole in it, it plants its larva into the beetle. When the eggs hatch, the larva
everybody's reading it. And like all of this stuff he's talking about, the cartouche, he would have learned more from the Amun-Ra Squad than just watching or even reading. Because like I said, I read Land of Osiris. There's more to be learned from the Amun-Ra Squad than any of these albino dude sources, Jew sources, white sources, whatever you want to call this race of albinos, call them what you want. There's more to be learned from the Amun-Ra Squad, at least in the sources that this dude's going to. Probably anybody in the world. Really. I don't think anybody in the world is fucking with ancient Egypt like the Amun-Ra Squad, especially white folk. And the reason why is simple. I mean, there might be some exceptions, you know, maybe one day Team Osiris can buck up somebody else that I'm not familiar with. But to be perfectly real, there ain't no white folks coming to Egypt like that. That's why they're always on the alien shit. And you'll see in a minute why. If you haven't, you know, you've already seen some, but you'll bear witness to more.
Also became a symbol. The first stage of the sun is the dawn, when the sun comes up. Because as a great teacher, R.A. Schwaller de Lubitsch, who, if you've heard of John Anthony West, is the greatest proponent of this man's teachings, he made the statement that the Egyptians, Cometians, used the known to evoke the unknown. And what they saw with this little beetle is pushing the ball of dung in front of itself daytime. They said, well, it was like bringing the sun disk at dawn, pushing the sun.
And then
So
Keper means form or to evolve. And Keperu is a plural for forms, plural. So
now, all this, and he could have just went to Sarm Imhotep's work, you know, and this guy, he has access to go, they were going to teach him directly because they could see that if he actually learned something, he'd be a great teacher.
Kim actually meant black land. mean black land? Because we know, according to Egypt as we know it, only the Nile River gave us an inhabitable strip of land to which we planted our crops and lived on.
And that was the basis of the civilization. You're going to see a slide I'm going to show you of Egypt, and people are amazed that all this civilization was a thin strip of green land around the river, and the rest was desert. That's dynastic times. But even so, the ancient people called it the black land, meaning the rich soil deposited by the river where they grew their crops.
You know, this is, instead of going to al-Kim in Arabic, they're going to the languages throughout Africa that have Kemet, Kim, you know, is village, nation, city, state, farmland. You know what I'm saying? That's getting into understanding that it's not black land. It doesn't mean black land. If it meant black land, then how come nobody else was calling Kemet black land? Like even in Arabic, they aren't calling it black land. It's reference to Egypt, al-Kim. So chemistry,
yeah,
you get it from.
That's exactly what it is. And
because this Ankh right here is what we know.
I'm just gonna let the Amun-Ra squad play out.
These whole two lines up here, there's no phonetic complements written on anything. And so this Keperu would have one too, but no, they just put the Keper triliteral and the U chick. But now to say what this means, if we just go to life, we go from life, Horus, then you see Neter, which is nature, and Keperu, changing or becoming. And obviously that'll be the harder way to do it if we was trying to go along in that sense.
And then the Nisud Bidi, which would be the Sedge and the B right there, would be another. And then the Heru of gold, where you were before, will be another.
Yeah, and then we got the hand right here, which some thought was a flying saucer, but they don't read the glyphs. So we know it's a hand right here. You see what I'm saying? And that's the D. And then there's a loaf of bread or what have you is the T. So I think we worked through Behudet right there, and it's symmetrical. This is the only thing in this stela that is symmetrical because it's kind of like the introduction or what have you. That's just what they chose to do.
Right? Bit. Right? And then we just added bitty. Huh?
That's interesting that you pointed that out. And now everybody knows the Nasut bit, or I don't know if everyone knows that that's the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. So we really see the divine birth of the king, divine birth of the Nisut. That's what this says right here.
No, because okay, what we're discovering here is that a lot of these feminine T's, or so-called feminine T's, are actually nominalizers. So we know the word "mess" in itself is the word for birth or to give birth.
That we all came from Africa. That it all came from Africa. Africa was the beginning of humanity, and the civilization.
Here's another thing.
Tribes we're talking about ancient Kemet were all races, all types of people.
Because I wondered about this. And this is one of the reasons I had questions. Because I mean, here are the only genetic tests, right? They ain't too multiracial at all. I mean, you got like Nefertiti, the one that I think is Nefertiti, is kind of like mixed on some Journey Smollett shit, but she ain't mixed. And if you look at her main bust, she looks more like Journey Smollett than Iman. I talked about that in Two Faces of Ancient Egypt. So I don't know what else to say other than there's more evidence that ancient Egypt was black, and at least this level, you know what I mean? Because these are the only genetic ancestry tests that were released so far. There have been one haplogroup released, and that's like African American shit. So, you know, like if you're gonna study Egypt, Hakim Ayan is a great source if you can cross-reference his material. But if you're just going by an oral history that's going back 20,000 years, you have other oral histories that aren't going back that far. Like the Bamileki say they came from ancient Egypt. The Khan trace themselves to Egypt and the Sudan. The Yoruba, the Sudan, some to Asia. And they got receipts. They got the culture. They got similar languages. The Amazulu. You can and so far when it comes to ancestry, that's where it's going to the heartland of Africa, mainly southern, central, west. So, and I see these cultural motifs all the time. Like ancient Egypt is sprinkled all over Africa. That's one of the problems I had when Young Pharaoh tried to argue that the language was dead. I mean, that's some coonish shit right there. I mean, for a guy who actually had a debate where he did well against a guy who was using a bunch of white supremacist talking points, when it comes to ancient Egypt, Young Pharaoh is a coon. He is buck dancing fine. I don't know why, other than I think there's like that whole baby boy thing and the disrespect for black men, and you know, a black man can't tell me nothing, that type of thing. I don't. Other than that, I don't get it. So anyway, I'm gonna let Diamond Rod Squad play out some more.
I wanted to say, as it regards this, is that this is a good opportunity to stress the African school of Egyptology and how it's a must that we not simply go into the dictionaries and just repeat what is in the dictionaries by the Western authors. What we do in Egypt, in the African Egyptological school, is that we look at the cognate languages, cognate customs and cultures, to get a sense of what is underlying the actual text that we're reading. It's really a little bit more simpler than that. The word nesut itself is a word for elder. And so what we're calling king is simply a word for father.
The Greeks and the Jews later, patriarchal society, looked at the society of ancient Egypt and they saw kings and sons. So they said, oh, Pharaoh must be the king's house. Well, it's not. The high house is the woman's house. You're talking about a civilization that was a matriarchy, where descent was matrilineal. Descent went from mother to daughter. So I say to you unequivocally, there never was a male pharaoh. Ever. Ever. So I say to you unequivocally, there never was a male pharaoh. Ever. Ever.
Now, I know, like, if you see this stuff, it's reasonable to think, oh, here's a white dude trying to further feminize African culture, but I don't think that's what's going on here. Maybe they didn't fact check themselves because the story was more palpable and it was moving. And it is true that ancient Egypt and a lot of African cultures are matrilineal, but they're not matriarchal in the sense that they're not ruled by women. They're mainly ruled by a family, but the man takes a more forward step position. That's why when you look at the iconography, the man is standing in front, the woman is standing in back. Most of the rulers are that have like their names and bust out there, they're dudes, but they're birthed from the land of the two ladies and all that. So women seem to take a greater role in the lineage, which is why it's matrilineal, but from a logistical standpoint, it is more patriarchal. They don't call it that. You don't have a bunch of women's lids talking about the patriarchy and all that shit. But if you're just like an alien that were to land and just watch, you would see that it is something that goes back to the days. And most of the people living in the Nile Valley during the time of the Nesibites, rulers, most of them were country folk. And Asari Motep talks about this in his book, Sabiti, where he talks about the king's role in ancient Egypt. It's born from a more ancient role of the man in the home needing to be a protective and a wise figure. The whole single mother shit culture, I ain't seeing
it. And again, I'll be coming out. I'm having it scrutinized by some linguists and some Egyptologists as we speak. but I'm going to be releasing a text that lets you know that this Nesu is a word for senior or elder in the Middle Egyptian language. And bit, or what we're calling bit, is a word for father.
Here's another thing that I just wanted to point out, because this is just a sign saying you've arrived, you know what I mean? But it's so much more than that. It's so fantasy. Like, it's not just, hey, welcome to Kemet. It's through the birth of the life. Like, I got to do a full, watch this and do a full translation, but it's just so much mystical stuff. It reminds me of a role-playing game where you got somebody who can barely read ancient writing, and they're like, oh, wow, the god of the two lands has given unto the king, blah, 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 deity. Like, man, this is a crazy place we're going to. What's going to, like, it's not just a simple, hey, California, you know what I mean? So I just wanted to throw that in there, because one of the reasons why I was inspired to write a movie script is it's just so fantasy, man. It is, the culture is so fantasy. It's just druidic African magic. And there's a lot of mundane. I mean, everything's primarily mundane, but man, it's like there's two places where you see a lot of magic art in Africa, Egypt and Benin. It's like you look up magic wand Benin, magic wand Egypt. I mean, there's.
And so you're saying the most senior elder or the most senior father, in terms of position or age.
I ain't got nothing else to say.
Africa, it is the most.
Let it play out. Let it play out.
Who had the most authority, and so when you look at this Shinu, it's really a tied piece of rope. In the old kingdom stillas and graphic representations, it was more clear. Right now, it just looks like a line, but it's actually a rope. And so this Shinu is a word for circle, but it's also a word for rope. But it's also an old word. It's also representative of an old word for king. And so it still survives in amongst the Akan, where the sh sound is now simply a h sound. And so when you say oheni, it's the same word, or henwa, it's the same word as what you're talking about shinu. And the Akan still have the shinus, but you know them as the Akan stool. And the Akan stool, when you look at the Akan stools, for the senior king, the senior elder of the community, you will see that it is an elaborate shinu, so-called shinu, and except it has a seat at the top of it. So you got to kind of picture this shinu vertically. You know, to understand what it is that you're looking at. And so, again, when you're reading this, is you also read the circle is what I'm trying to argue. So it's the most senior elder, the most senior elder or father, king, ha or hara, because that capital A is really a nasalized uvular trill, which is an R sound. And this is halawu or kararu, Ra. And actually, Ra may be also Ra, because Ra's also spelled Rau as well. And so this is what you get when you actually compare the languages and compare the customs of the people who still do this, in various creative ways along that Nile Valley and that Sudanic belt. So to speak. And so I just wanted to add that you add that. Matter of fact, I think it was Brother Wujawu who mentioned earlier a sarek. The sarek was the old version of the what we call the shinu, and the sareks were also tied pieces of rope, around the king's name. And the word sarek still survives in the Hausa language as saraki, which is a word for king. And it's also, in perinym, is a word for rope. And so when you see the sareks and the names inside the sareks for the king, you read it king, whatever the name is in the Surek. So it's the same thing with here with Shinu. It's king, whatever the name is inside the king. Inside the Shinu. But another thing in which you would have to know about African culture is that the word for king, and also even the word for bit to a certain extent, is really the one who made the link. And you got to understand why they kept using ropes, because they didn't have chains like we have chains today in terms of link. Their idea of a link and connection is a tied, a woven piece of rope. And so the king is the one who makes the link, because it is him who is the go-between between the living community and the ancestors and the spirit as the senior priest, of the community, of the kingdom. And so these old indigenous terms have just been upgraded to the First Nation state in Egypt, but it still had its old connotations, associated with this. And so this is something that you would just have to know about African culture, which we can demonstrate systematically, linguistically, and iconographically, because it still is the same along this belt. This is the senior father, senior priest, the one who made the link, the king, Ra, and then, who gives life.
So Sini Wasret, and Wasret means powerful one. Like brother Asar Motep said, that the T normalizes the verb, so it's the powerful one. But even once people get over that initial hurdle of being able to transliterate or substitute the glyphs for the transliteration symbol, and then be able to look them up in dictionaries, then it goes beyond that, because then you have to understand the cultural motifs and the nuances in the culture, and then the idioms of the culture. And you can only do that by a constant study of Kemet itself, plus inter-African living traditions and cultures. So the people who think that this is some fast study where you could spend a week and Google things and then try to come away with full knowledge of Medu Neter and try to even debate people.
Exactly what I need, because let me just show them. That's how we learn. I just learned that right now. I know how to read it, but the way you just broke it down in sections like that, this is why we build like this, is because we got a lot of information to share.
And then you get into the Sarah.
But what I'm saying is the fact that we can go in this Medu Neter